friends, GojiFan93 here, and welcome to the next video of the King Kong-a-thon. In this review, we will be talking about King Kong Lives. So this movie is a direct sequel to the last movie of King Kong, the remake that was in the 70s. So this one came out, I believe it was 1982. I believe. I'll put a little thing if I'm wrong. Okay, first off, I just wanted to address a few things about this movie before I get started. I was amazed at how many of you guys already were writing this movie off when I did my last review. A lot of you guys were saying, "Oh, Goji, I can't wait for you to tear this movie apart. Oh, you're gonna hate this next one." Well, here's the thing. This is actually like the third time I've watched this movie in my whole life, and actually, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't understand why so many people hate this movie. I don't understand why so many people think that this movie is terrible, that's blasphemy compared to the other Kong movies and all this stuff. Like, I don't really understand that. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, and it's not as good as the first one, as King Kong, the 1976 film. But I still enjoy this film for what it is, and I like the idea behind it, and I think the way it was executed was I mean, like I said, it's not perfect, but I feel like it's still a very enjoyable movie. I think it's just a very cheesy movie, and I found way more enjoyment out of this movie than I did with King Kong Escapes, that's for sure. So, anyways, the story to this one, it takes place 10 years after the events from the first one. So when the movie starts, they actually show a flashback of King Kong in the Empire State Building. I'm sorry, not the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers, and King Kong gets, gunned down by the helicopters, and then they show 10 years later, and then they have this whole facility made, and they are trying to revive Kong. They're trying to get him a replacement heart, and, first off, when I was watching the movie, I was thinking, okay, well, in realistic terms, this doesn't make any sense. Like, first of all, 10 years? How the heck were they able to keep King Kong alive for 10 years when he got shot up like that? The other thing is why would they want to bring King Kong back after all the damage he did? And that leads into a third point of all the money that they spent for this research and to build this facility and all that stuff to revive King Kong. That money probably could have been used to do all the rebuilding that probably King Kong cost them, in the first one with all the destruction that he did in that. But, whatever. Like I said, this movie's cheesy and a lot of story elements to it don't really make sense, but anyways, they managed to revive Kong, but they realize, before they revive him, they need to do a blood transfusion on him, and the only way that they can do that is to get another, basically the same species as King Kong, but they realize that there's not another one, except for there is a Lady Kong in this one. The first, I guess you would say, Queen Kong shows up, and they manage to get her. This one of the main characters, he tries to hunt for her, and he manages to get her. Now, at the beginning of the movie, what I really liked about this guy, this character, is that at the beginning of the movie, he kind of seems like he's just in it for the money. He seems very greedy, but he doesn't really have a character arc where he's greedy and then he turns good. Like, he's actually a genuinely good guy. Like, he's happy that he's gonna get rich off her by bringing her to the city and all that, but he also is still genuinely concerned about Lady Kong's well-being, which I really liked. Like, they were, they were saying like they're gonna transfer her into. When the photographer, when all the paparazzi guys were coming up, when they brought Lady Kong into the city, and she's still in the plane, and he's like, hey, back off, back. He's like pushing the cameraman off, and he's saying, you're in the presence of a lady. I really like how he still was, kind of caring, even though he kind of had a greedy side to him. But I feel like that was a little bit more of a realistic character trait than just a straight up greedy person or a straight up noble person. He was in the middle. He's kind of like he's pretty much what most of us would do. We would still do this probably to make a lot of money, but we would then also still feel genuinely concerned about the well-being of the, creature, just because, because it's a live thing. So, Anyway, so they managed to revive King Kong because they got the blood transfusion, and then King Kong wakes up and he smells Lady Kong, of course. And you would think, well, this is, I mean, you know, it's not really a good idea. And the other main character, she says, I don't remember the names, by the way, to the main characters. I don't remember if they even, like, said them in the movie. I would probably have to look at, like, IMDb to figure out that. But anyway, so she she says to the scientist, she's like, hey, you know, we probably shouldn't bring the lady here because Kong's gonna get all excited, or he's gonna, like, you know, try to find her and he's gonna wreck more stuff, which is actually what happens. So he ends up waking up and he tries to go to her. They end up, you know, destroying a bunch of things, and then it's just an all-out, oh, forget about King Kong, the military's just gonna go out and try to kill them both. And that's pretty much what the rest of the movie, the storyline is. Now, a few of my favorite scenes in this movie, definitely when King Kong first rescues Lady Kong. I love it. I freaking love that part. He just breaks into this hangar and just, you know, gets her out of there, starts throwing the tanks. But once again, the main character, the guy who hunted for the Lady Kong, once again, this guy shows how much of a cool hero he is, because he actually goes on top of, like, a, what is it, like, one of the, like, construction vehicles. Because, like, for some reason they're using all these construction vehicles to, like, barricade Lady Kong. I don't really understand why they would do that, but he, like, goes behind it and kicks the guy in the back and, you know, takes him off there so that they wouldn't hurt Lady Kong. I don't know, he just does, like, some really heroic things, which I really like. I really liked this main character. I think he was a really good main character. But anyways, yeah, so they, you know, I really like that scene. The other scene that I really liked is when you get to have this very, this really cool scene where Lady Kong and King Kong are just together and they're just hanging out. And this is after he rescued her, so he got injured in the leg. And so this scene was so cute because, you know, he's, like, trying to give her, like, trees or something, like, you know, to eat or whatever, and she's just like, no, I want these, and she grabs, like, another bunch of trees and just, like, runs away. She's playing hard to get, basically, and it's kind of, like, ticking King Kong off. He grabs, like, this snake, and he's like, hey, do you want the snake? And then she looks over and she's like, oh, get that thing away, and then she, like, walks off. I just really like that. I thought that that was really adorable. And then, like, when she comes over to, you know, mend his wounds, that he kind of does the whole, and puts his arm around her and stuff like that. I just thought that that was just adorable. I really, really enjoyed that scene. And there's no dialogue. It's all through the facial animations and all that. So, what was another one of my favorite scenes? Oh, and then towards the end, but I'll get towards the end because the ending is something to talk about on its own. So the story the story I thought was alright. I mean, it had some cheesy moments. It definitely has some plot holes where it's like, that just is not realistic. Why would they bring back Kong? Why would they spend all this money to do that? You know, it kind of seems a little bit stupid. Also the fact that, you know, oh, they're going to revive Kong first, you know, just to make a sequel to King Kong, and oh, there happens to be a female now. Oh, and then, you know, it's kind of a predictable plot, but I still think it worked for the movie. I still think it was very entertaining. Also, the music was somewhat memorable. I feel like if you listen to the soundtrack, you could probably enjoy it. I enjoyed the soundtrack. I really did like the music to it. It didn't feel like super King Kong-ish, but it still fit the movie a little bit. I mean, it was a little bit stockish at some points, but, you know, overall, I think the main theme is pretty memorable. And the suits themselves. So this movie's also, once again, has suitimation, which I thought was really cool. And maybe that's why I like these movies a lot, because they have suitimation, and, you know, there's not a lot of King Kong movies with suitimation. Well, I mean, there kind of is. It's kind of the majority of his movies. But it's really cool to see, you know, without being the stop motion or the CGI, it's cool to see a really good-looking suitimation King Kong. I will say that when it comes to the suit seems a little bit downgraded from the first movie, from the 70s one. King Kong's face is a little bit, like, they seem to have elongated their face. I don't know how else to say that, but, like, their snout or whatever. It looks a little bit off. It looks a little bit more fake, a little bit more rubbery, or you know, but it still worked. They still had the, you know, really cool facial animatronics with it, and it still looked pretty cool. And let's see, what else did I like? I mean, yeah, you know, and the pacing was really good in the movie. I could follow it. I was entertained. There were a few parts in the movie where I was actually bored. I was actually pretty intrigued with the whole movie. There was actually even some of the human parts I was very invested in. And you know, this movie also just, you know, I think the thing, like the metaphor for the first movie is, you know, beauty killed the beast, and how, you know, people are so greedy that will do things to hurt other, like, animals or something like that. This one takes it to a whole nother level. Every time Kong just wants to rest, every time Kong and Lady Kong just want to be together, the military always shows up and always has to, like, mess up everything. And it's really, like, you feel for them, you know, you're like, oh, come on, military, just leave them alone, you know, just leave the apes alone. And it's just really, really sad stuff. So I want to talk about the ending. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I'm getting into spoiler territory here, so click away if you don't want to hear the ending to this movie. So here we go. I'm going to start the spoiler parts. So yeah, the ending of the movie basically has King Kong and Lady Kong, and we find out that she gets pregnant. And you know, this adds another level of drama, and it's like, oh great, she's pregnant, and then eventually she falls down in this like barn kind of area, and that's where she gives birth. But sadly, before she gives birth, or I guess while she's giving birth, King Kong is interrupted by the military again, and he just gets messed up. I mean, they're shooting him with their guns, the turrets on the jeeps, and I mean, you just, like, the blood, like, you just see blood just spewing everywhere. I mean, like, you thought in the first movie when he was on top of the Twin Towers and getting shot up, like, it was pretty gory. This is like extremely gory. Holy crap. Yeah, he just gets messed up. And also, I know I'm kind of digressing here. I forgot to mention another scene that I really liked is when King Kong takes out the hunters. There are these, like, a group of hunter guys that try to, you know, kill King Kong, and they kind of trap him in, like, a bunch of rocks because they put TNT on the cliffs. And so like, they were messing with him, and then King Kong finally got out, and then he grabs, like, one guy and splits him in half, and then he grabs the other guy, I bet, like, the leader of this little group, and he just eats him. I freaking love that scene. But anyways, that was that. So let's get back to the ending here. So I'm just going back and forth, aren't I? So yeah, but you know, he takes out most of the military in that part, and but he's just messed up. I mean, at this point, you know he's gonna die. I mean, like, you just know it. And it's really sad because by the time he gets to his, you know, Lady Kong, she, you know, ends up having birth, and a little son of Kong pops out, and it's just the most adorable thing. And this scene is the most bittersweet scene ever. I mean, like, once again, this is why I don't know why people hated this movie, because this one scene is so it's like so heart-wrenching. You're just like, oh, there's little Kong, but King Kong's dying and he's not going to be able to see his son, and it's like really sad because one of the female protagonist, I don't know why I said female twice, she says, you know, oh, Kong, there he is, like, reach out to him, and Kong's like trying to reach out to him, and he touches him, and he holds him, like, you see little Kong just kind of like, okay, this is little Kong here, and he's just kind of like right here in Kong's hand, you know, just kind of resting, like, baby, and then all of a sudden Kong just dies. He's just out, and then his hand just, like, here's you know, the baby Kong, and his hand just goes like this, and the poor little guy is just like, what's going on? He starts crying and stuff. It's so sad. Like, that scene is just, you know, oh, hit me right in the feels. But then at the end of the movie, they end up getting Lady Kong and Son of Kong back into the wild, into natural habitat where they won't be disturbed by any human presence, and they can live happily ever after. And I kind of noticed that every single King Kong movie ends in a very sad way. The first King Kong movie, obviously, he, you know, falls off the Empire State Building by getting gunned down by the jets. And then the second movie, Son of Kong gets drowned because he sacrifices himself for the main character. So Son of Kong dies by drowning. And then in the 70s remake, once again, he gets gunned down by the helicopters. And in this one, he gets gunned down by military jeeps and dies in front of his son and his, you know, potential, you know, basically his girlfriend or wife, whatever, you know, in front of Lady Kong. And obviously we know in the 2005 King Kong remake that, you know, he dies too. So it's just like every freaking King Kong movie, he dies in the most, like, really sad way. poor guy never gets a break. Okay, except for maybe King Kong Escapes. Alright, maybe then he was alright, but, you know, whatever. So yeah, but, you know, to end this review, I really enjoyed King Kong Lives. I do not understand the hate for it. I don't get it. I feel the people that hate this movie are people that are just like diehard King Kong fans that are like, oh, it's nothing like the original, oh, it's you know, the movie's terrible, I don't like the characters, and oh, King Kong having Lady Kong, and it's so cheesy and bleh. I feel like the people who really hate this movie really like King Kong Escapes, and that just makes me like just go back, because it's just like, oh, you know, they probably just like King Kong Escapes just because it's a classic Toho movie, and it's like, that doesn't give an excuse. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that because you guys know how I feel about King Kong Escapes. So, but King Kong Lives, I really enjoyed this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend watching it. I enjoyed it. If you like the 70s and the 80s King Kong movies, you know, the first one, the 76 remake, and this one, I think you'll like it. I really do. If you like the 76 one, I think you'll like this one. Just don't go into it being too serious like the first one. This one is cheesy, but I feel like it has a good message and it's just entertaining. Way more entertaining than what King Kong Escapes was. So, but that's my review. I think I really got on top of all the things that I want to talk about with this movie, and the next review will be Peter Jackson's King Kong, which is my all-time favorite King Kong movie. I cannot wait to watch that 3-hour movie, basically. But that'll be the next one, and yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay big, G fans.